can go beyond this current situation. We're learning lots of lessons, and hopefully it can have some positive impact going forward for parents and children. We're going to be bringing real stories, so the experiences of the panelists that we have with us today, suggestions, all kind of discussion around their children, because all panelists are parents except for myself, and two of which are coaches. We've got two credentialed coaches with us, and we just fancy having conversations and sharing ideas just to make this time a little bit easier for parents out there. So, okay, I'd love to as well tell you about a LinkedIn group that we've set up. So anybody out there who wants to continue this conversation or has some amazing resources, tips, ideas, anything at all, share them on this LinkedIn page. It's Parenting with a Coaching Mindset. We'd love to see you on there. And I think my colleague Nishmita will pop up the link in a moment in the chat box. Fantastic, thank you. I'm not a parent, as I said before. I have absolutely no experience of working with or parenting little ones, but I am a youth worker. I have been working with mostly 11 to 19-year-olds for about 15 years now. I'm a coach, and I'm JNC qualified, which is the youth worker qualification. I've worked in the UK, Zambia, Uganda, I'm going to forget where else, Kenya, and Ecuador. And now online, I run a service called the Youth Mentor Coach. And yes, and I'm doing a lot of work with Coach Arya. We have a youth program coming up soon. It's a youth life and leadership skills training that's going to be free and available at some point this year. So it's very exciting. This webinar is going to last about 90 minutes. We won't go over that. And feel free to connect with myself or any other panelist, I'm sure they'd agree, through LinkedIn. And if you're interested in contributing in any way to any future webinars or any future work that we do with parents, then please give me a shout. So I kind of going to introduce quickly what this webinar is specifically about. It's going to be about how COVID-19 is impacting the little ones of our panelists. Also, how we can possibly help our little ones during this confusing, unusual, potentially worrying time. How parents can balance their roles and adapt to the situation. Coaching tools, because we have two wonderful coaches on board who can share their suggestions and ideas. We're going to look at communication and the importance of structure and routine, especially with little ones, and also informal education, informal learning, and integrating play into that. Okay, right, so we're going to get started. Anyone in the audience, if you have any questions whatsoever about little ones, do put them in the chat box, and the panelists will keep an eye on those, as I will, and answer them as and when we can. Also, do share your biggest challenge that you've been having during lockdown with your little ones, and also your biggest win, a success, something positive, if possible. And now I'm going to hand over to our panelists. So Colleen, if you would like to first introduce yourself and tell everyone a bit about your personal situation in the lockdown. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah, and welcome everyone. As Leah said, I'm a coach, and I work with groups and teams in global organizations and online. So I work primarily with relationships, and that means we're always in relationship with ourselves, with each other, with work, with technology. And so during this time, it's quite an interesting time, even for me as a coach, because suddenly we find ourselves blended in this situation with everything all at once, trying to deal with that. And so my situation is, well, I'm a mother. So firstly, I say I'm a human being because I need to remind myself, and I'm a wife and a mother and a business owner, and I'm a student. And now I'm looking at homeschooling my 6-year-old. So there are 3 individuals living under one roof. We've all got to, there are 2 of us working a couple of us schooling, and we are finding ourselves needing to navigate all these contexts ourselves. So that's really the situation we're in confinement. 3 human beings with different needs.
Thank you, Colleen. And Kamal, if you could introduce yourself as well, please. You're on mute.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm also a coach, a mother to 2. My elder one is a teenager and the younger one is 8 years old. And my situation is a bit unique. I'm from India, born and brought up in India, but now I'm in Canada. We just moved a little ahead of the COVID-19 started, like last year, and it allows us just enough time to just get settled, children in their respective schools and me here in a new environment, and then it just happened. So for us, it's the transition in continuation, only the form is changed. Like initially it was moved from a different country, and now it's a different kind of transition that we are facing. But so far, I'm happy to report that we are in good space. As like Colleen mentioned, their schoolwork starts. So every day they have a little exercise where the teacher would ask which zone you are in. So my son would be writing, I'm in the green zone. I'm happy because so and so. So I would say that, yes, we are in green zone so far. We've been able to maintain that. And I would love to share everything, what keeps us in this green zone today with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal. And Edyta?
Hello, everybody. I'm Edyta, and I am a mom of 2 teenagers. And I'm also a teacher of primary age students. And I have plenty of experience with kids under 8. And I'm here to answer some questions that you might have. I am fortunate enough to be working from home. I must say I dislike it very much. This is definitely not something that I will ever enjoy. I crave the human contact. I love my kids at school. I miss them terribly. So this is the hard part, but I am happy I can connect with them in other ways, and not just with them, but their families. So now I'm a permanent visitor in their houses on a weekly basis. So that also brings us even closer together than before. So this is the positive about the whole situation. If you have any questions for me as a teacher, please put them in the chat box and I'll try to answer later on. But I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
What a great panel, and lots of different perspectives and experiences. And please, if you do put any comments in the chat, could you change it to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see what you're writing? Okay, so I mean, from my perspective as a non-parent, I work a lot with and for teenagers. And for me, parenting is so super important. I'm really passionate about it because when you work with children and young people, you need to look systemically. So how everyone's impacting parents, teachers, etc. And something that really inspired me when I was younger was a quote from, and I might pronounce his name wrong, but Khalil Gibran, a really inspiring poet, artist, etc. And I hope I get this right, but he basically said that parents are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. And that always stuck with me. And during this crisis and during this situation, we need to make sure that our bows are as strong as possible to make sure our children fly through this, learn from this and thrive from it. So that's why I'm very passionate about it. And I'd love to ask the panel, just jump in when you can. How's this current situation affecting your little ones or the little ones that you work with? Anyone can jump in.
Okay. My kids are not that little, we are dealing with it. We are having more and more problems with waking up, but that's a separate issue. I think that my main concern actually are my students at this point, because they are really, really missing school. They are missing their friends, they're missing the routine, they're missing learning. They just miss everything about school. The first couple weeks were sort of, very new. They were excited because they got to work online. They got to be on the computer for prolonged periods of time. It was like, wow, I can actually have my own device and spend a lot of time on it. But it wore off. It's been tougher and tougher. So that's my main concern right now, because we still have, I would say, 5 weeks of school, and we need to keep going. We need to have our plans. We need to make sure that the kids are completing the work. So there is a lot that we have to do as teachers.
Okay, Edyta,
Yes.
I must appreciate you, and along with you, all those teachers who are working. And that reminds me of the email that I got from my son's school last night, where the teacher said that, reported back to me that how he's doing. And so it shows me that how closely, they are, working. So the beautiful part is now I feel more like a team, working for my child, where the teachers are there. And then she would ask, can I speak to him because I miss him? And then I told him this morning, and he was like, why does she want to talk to me? Will she talk about work? And I was like, no, she just wants to know that you're okay. And so it's a very new dynamic that we are exploring, but it's so beautiful. It gives so much of strength, because the teacher and parent really is now working more closely as a team. And initially what you said, Colleen, also, and Leah, that now that as a parent I get to involve more in his everyday activities and routines, I'm developing more appreciation for what the teachers do actually.
Mm-hmm.
And initially for the first week, it was so difficult for me. I was like, my God, they do so much. How am I going to support him doing that? And then I was like, my God, the teachers really do so much with the children. And it's amazing to become aware of it. Mm-hmm. And Leah, what you said about Khalil Gibran, I absolutely resonate with it. And I think in the current time, really, while we are supporting our little children, I think it's very important as parents that we also work more on strengthening ourselves. And I think that is something that, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Your microphone's a little bit quiet. We can hear you, but if you could speak up a little bit, that would be brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you.
I hope it's clear now. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So as I was saying, like the way you said that, Khalil Gibran's quote that parents are actually the bows from where the children go as live arrows. It's really incredible. It's really important, because in this time when we get to spend more than usual time that we're used to spending with the children, there's so many new things that come to us in the form of insight and awareness about our own self. And I think while we take care of the children, it's equally important to strengthen our own inner self to be with them.
Wow. That is powerful, and segues into what I'd like to share around making sure that our interior conditions are what they need to be, so that taking care of self while taking care of other, and whatever that means in terms of partners, children, work, how we feel about work, how we feel about technology, is so vitally important to get that balance right. So when we are showing compassion, are we showing compassion towards ourselves? Are we showing empathy towards ourselves? Because the guilt that comes up, I don't know if any parents out there feel the guilt of, oh, we've got the schedule and now it's online, and we've got to make sure that our children are schooled between 7:30 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, and how are we going to fit work in and everything that comes with it. And given this situation, I found myself in a little bit of shock about three weeks ago, when I was like, oh, okay, let's get into what my son needs to do online. And we were fine for the first couple of days until we started falling behind. And so to meet ourselves as parents with that, noticing when we're feeling guilty, and then looking beyond that emotion to what is it trying to tell us and what can we do in this situation. You know, we've got to really be kind to ourselves and each other and look at what we can realistically achieve given these situations. So that's really what we've been doing as a family unit. Can we aim to look at 2 hours of collective school or learning activity, and how do we share those responsibilities and be okay with what we can't get to, because there's everything to get to all at once while we're in this situation. And I loved how I think, Kamal, you said how we are working together more closely, even though we're apart. So systemically, we are appreciating what the teachers are doing behind the scenes and finding different ways to connect. And I think that's so important in these times.
Absolutely. Thank you, Colleen. Edyta, before we come to you, can I just ask Kamal a quick question that we've had from Kiara? What is the origin of green zone? Where does it come from? And do teachers explain neurobiology to students?
Okay, so what teachers do and how they explain it to the children, they don't explain it in terms of neurobiology.
Please speak up.
Okay, all right. Okay. It takes me back to my theater days voice exercise. I think that's what I need to do. Okay, so they don't explain it neurobiologically, but they do it in the way that children learn the best, which is by showing it to them. So the teachers put it like, I am in the green zone today because so and so and so things are happening with me, and then in what zone you are. And it's amazing how children just pick it up. And then some would say that I'm in a little blue zone, and some would say that I'm in a orange zone, and then they give their examples. And it's so beautiful how they learn and relate specific emotions with colors, and how all of these things are going. And I think that's the best way to teach the children, show them through examples, and just they pick it.
Thank you. And Edyta, did you want to add something on to? You'll have to unmute though.
Okay, so to all parents out there, okay, you are doing an amazing job. You are the true heroes because you have been thrown into this whirlwind situation that is basically impossible, okay, to do it perfectly. So please give yourself a break, really. Just, you truly are doing an amazing job. You're so flexible. You are not only a parent, a teacher, a wife, a mother, obviously. You're trying to balance work and household duties and everything. It's a lot. And you have not been trained, for years like we have, to be a teacher. And kids behave differently at home too. You are a mom. You're not supposed to be teaching them that way, So there is some resistance from kids. So like I said, just breathe. Nobody expects perfection right now. What we expect is, yes, some effort on your part, but mostly please just make sure that your kids are safe and happy and are dealing with this situation in the best possible way. The work that we send home is not what we would do in the classroom, okay? It's already modified. It is The content is definitely less than what we would do in the classroom. It's only a percentage. We only focus on like a smaller piece. We cannot expect you to teach new concepts. So we basically base our instruction right now on what we already have taught. And we are trying to make sure that those skills remain the same until we start the new school year. But again, we cannot expect you to be teaching your children everything brand new. We send more materials than we expect you to do, most probably, but that's normal. Teachers always over prepare. We always have more than we are going to get through. So just breathe, really. And if you don't get through something, it's not going to be the end of the world, really. We are already aware that our students will start the new school year being probably about 25% behind what they normally would show at the beginning of the next school year. So we are thinking about it. We are going to be adjusting our curriculum, based on what we know. We will be assessing the kids, evaluating where they are, and taking them from where they are. This is an extreme situation that nobody was prepared. So we are definitely grateful for everything that you are doing, because it's a lot. So that's just my bit.
Thank you. I'm sure lots of parents out there are so happy with what you've just said, really. And I'm wondering as well about that transition back to school for children. How would you kind of recommend, what would you suggest to parents to prepare their children for going back? Because this is a big gap, and that kind of change of structure and routine, is going to be a bit difficult. So what would be your suggestions around that?
Oh, this is very difficult right now, to tell you the truth, because we are just trying to figure out even class lists for next year. It's just so out there. It is so hard for us to figure everything out at this moment, especially that we don't even know if we are going to go back, because we hear different opinions whether we will be starting online again or in regular classrooms. So for now, try not to talk too much about the future, because you don't want to tell them one thing and then have the kids disappointed. I think that that's very important, that we just focus on the present. Let's just get through this school year, enjoy the summer as much as you can, and then just say we'll take it day by day. And kids don't really think about the future. They don't really know what's tomorrow and next month. So in those terms, I would just say that let's just take it day by day, focus on the future, and then maybe we'll have another webinar around June, July, once we know a little bit more, and then I'll be more than happy to share what I know with you later.
Thank you. And I love what you said about children living in the now. And I think us adults need to learn a bit more about that as well, not worrying too much about that future and what's going to happen next. Colleen, you have your hand up. Would you like to jump in?
I just want to thank Edyta for sharing that, because it's so vitally important for us to remain present and mindful in the moment now. When you asked that question, Leah, as a parent, it triggers anxiety for me to even consider what the future might look like and sending my child back to school. So it is really difficult to actually deal with the thoughts and the emotions that arise around that. And so I prefer to stay in my little safety bubble at the moment, in the present, and then learn from my child around how present he is in his activities in each moment. So he actually teaches me. So things are quite different now around that. But thank you, Edyta, for bringing that, and also giving us parents permission and acknowledging that we're doing the best we can with what we have. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And panelists, based on your personal experience and knowledge and ideas, How can we help little ones to cope better during COVID-19?
Okay,
Come
I'll go
on.
first.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so there've been a few things that I noticed in my son and his behavior initially when all of these things started to happen. And like his insistence on trying to go online and seeing, how coronavirus is spreading. And then he had so many different questions in his mind. And so he would want to know where, in which country, what is happening, how many people are dying, how many are recovering, what does this graph really means? Does it mean it's increasing here? Does it mean it's slowing down here? And, all that curiosity. And then his questions like, what will happen if I get virus? And then, so I would answer him and I'll try and tell him that, you're taking all the precautions and all the safety, so there are less chances that you'll get it. But still, what will happen? Then say we will take measures, we'll give you medicines, you will have to take rest and you'll have to eat properly and you'll get better, So I tried and give him a perspective like this is just like any other ailment. It's just that it's spreading in a specific way that we have to keep sustained. And then he also read or listened to some reports like old people are the ones who are dying more in this pandemic. So he was like immediately, will my grandma get it, because she's in India? So he's like, oh, will she get it? I said, well, I hope not. And and those kind of questions. And then another question popped up in his mind and he was like, when I will grow old, will I get coronavirus then? So he's already I was like amazed at seeing where and in what all different dimensions and directions his mind was going. And for me it was an amazing insight into the mind of a 8-year-old, and how many different ways he can think or comprehend. So that sort of gave me an opportunity to keep an open communication with him, keep talking to him. And when I find him get stuck on a particular point which is not that positive, I'll try and bring it an alternate perspective. Like if he's focusing more on how many people died, then I will just quietly show him, oh, but look, Srijan, how many number of people have got well also. And then he will look and then he will like sort of shift, So that's one thing which I think is very, very important uh, when children start to respond. Like we can always show them a different perspective, a different aspect, and then let them sit with it for a while, and that sort of works.
Kamal, how important do you think honesty is in these conversations with our children?
Personally, I believe I would choose to be honest because they will grow up that phase. It could be very difficult because, and why it is difficult is because as parents, we do not know at all the times, how to answer their question without impacting them in some way. But the fact is, whatever is happening around, they are having, they are thinking and they are comprehending already with their own mindset. So I think instead of giving them a response which later on they grow up and then feel like, oh, my whole life was a lie, that's a dialogue which my daughters sometimes jokingly say, but to assume that, oh, why I wasn't told, I think rather it's more important that parents maybe think a little, discuss, and figure out ways to tell the truth to the children. That's is my best take, though it could be very difficult at times, but it's always important to be honest. I mean, that sort of helps.
Thank you. And thank you for putting your own experience in there as well. And does anyone else on the panel have any suggestions for coping during COVID-19 and for helping children to understand it better and to get through this time.
Just to add to what Kamal said, and thanks for that around truth, I think it's vitally important to keep communication lines open and to help children identify with what they're feeling. I know there's a lot of different perspectives out there around how emotionally intelligent children can be, given the different development areas of the brain. But from personal experience, I've been teaching my children about naming emotions from a very young age. And I know it is possible through that. And it starts simple, with the simple emotions. I mean, before he could talk, he was starting to express the different emotions. So I would say, show me sad, show me shocked, show me happy. And he would express it. And so those basic emotions really help us name them so that we can go deeper into understanding more about, for example, fear, and getting to the deeper need of what do you need to help you feel safe, and then to check back in with your child and after conversation to then see how has that shifted. Does your child feel safe after this conversation? So to make sure that you can keep these lines of communication open, and to name feelings is very important.
Thank you. And Edyta, I think you've got your hand up.
Yes. Thank you. So to what you were saying, I just tried to post a mood meter. Of course, it's just a jumble of letters right now, but if you Google mood meter, there is one, there are plenty of them, and then they have different emotions in those different quadrants, and like Kamal was talking about it, and that will definitely help. This is part of social emotional curriculum that we've been using in our school, and it definitely, I highly suggest, because it specifies, those different zones with the particular feelings. When we talk to kids, how do you feel? Good. How do you feel? Sad. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Or you're angry, so maybe 3. They will be able to name 3, but just talk to them about their different feelings, because on a gloomy day, we might feel just blue, sad. We can't go outside and nothing's happening. But also we can feel blue because we are missing, blue meaning in that quadrant, because we are missing our friends. So just talk deeper and more specifically about each of those is very helpful. So I don't know, if you click on the link, I don't think it works really, but if you click on the links, it should come up, the mood meter should come up. And if not, just please Google mood meter and you'll be able to see it. And it's such a helpful tool to use with your kids, younger, older, to talk about their feelings and to be more specific. And, it helps adults as well, I think, to identify those. And then I know that through the curriculum, of course, it's very extensive, but just for that, okay, I lost my train of thought right now. But you will be able to also focus on your emotions as well. And then you'll be saying, oh, I feel, I'm in the green, I'm in the blue, I'm really red today because, my coffee maker broke or something like that. So I think that that's very helpful. Hopefully the parents will be able to use it.
Edyta, I couldn't agree more. Working with teenagers, and I was speaking to Colleen this morning about this, emotions are something we don't really teach in school. And lots of teens present with anger. And a lot of adults presume they're angry or they're naughty. And actually underneath that anger is usually a series of emotions. And it's good for children to understand how to identify those emotions and also to talk about them, and for us to talk about emotions with our children. So thank you so much for sharing that, and I'll be using it as well. Thank you. Colleen, you had your hand up.
Oh, yeah. Not at the moment. I think it was Kamal.
Oh, it might have been a Kamal, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was really in agreement with what Edyta said about not just children knowing how to express their emotions, but also for parents to understand exactly what they are expressing. Because I see quite a lot in my experience that the kind of schooling my children are having, and nowadays, uh, the teachers are more involved, they get a lot of personal attention, and they do get taught a lot of these things. But the kind of schooling we've had, we didn't have this sort of, ways and tools to express our own emotions, for us to even, we may identify, but just to openly acknowledge that is very important. And that sort of reminds me an incident that happened with my nephew. So one day in school, something happened and his pant got torn. And so he was quite upset, and he was like embarrassed in a way. And so when he came back home, so his parents were talking to him and they were trying to make it a little bit lighter, but he was getting very embarrassed and he didn't want to talk about it and he cried. So at the dinner table, we were sitting and he was like, Bua, something happened today, but I don't want to talk about it. It's very embarrassing. I overheard his previous conversation, so I had a little idea as to what he's talking about. So I say, it's okay if you don't want to talk about it. And then I told him, I said, but do you want to know what was my most embarrassing moment? And he's like, yes. So I said, okay. So I told him the whole story, like how I just, in a lobby full of many people, I just fell straight on my face coming right out of the elevator. And so he laughed out loud and I laughed, and I was like, it was so embarrassing at that moment. But the way I said it laughingly, it sort of, opened up a whole new space for him, as if he got a permission. And then he was like, immediately, what happened today? So, and then he explained his own story. And I was like, sometimes we just need to, so though he knew his feeling, but just to offer him that space, that it's okay. It's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to be embarrassed. It's okay to feel ashamed at times. But then how you can just take these things not that seriously and just let it out of your system. I think that's also very important.
Thank you, Kamal. It definitely is. Definitely. And just for everybody that's not watching live, the resource that was shared by Edyta, oh, I don't know, there seems to be an internet connection problem. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Yes, oh, fantastic. The resource that Edyta shared and any others that we share will all be put in our LinkedIn group, which is Parenting with a Coaching Mindset. So please join us on there if you're not watching live. And Colleen, would you like to jump in? Thank you.
I'd just like to add to what Kamal said around acknowledging. So it's like emotions are we can't suppress them. They will come out in the most unskillful ways. And so sometimes just to acknowledge them helps us to understand what's going on and to then look at beneath them to figure out what are the unmet needs. And Dr. Dan Siegel is incredible when trying to explain how the brain works and how emotions, how triggers happen in emotions. And what comes to mind is the name it to tame it. So we can actually say, what are these emotions? What are they trying to tell us? And they are very important and they are valid. So how can we acknowledge them in order to go beneath and to understand what the emotion's trying to signal to us, that there's an unmet need, so that we can try and understand if our children are battling to express what it is they need, we can then see beyond it and see what is the request coming at us, so that we can hold that space and go beyond and facilitate really getting their needs met in the moment. So I thought I'd just add that, and Dr. Dan Siegel's work is amazing. So I'll also put a link to the book in the LinkedIn group so that everyone can benefit from this information.
Thank you, Colleen. Oh, I'm losing my voice. Excuse me. Now we have a question that's come through for panelists, and it says, it must be difficult for parents to set aside their own stress and validate their children's emotions right now. Sometimes parents might have outbursts. What do you do as a corrective measure? Who would like to answer that?
I'm putting my hands up.
Oh, you are there. You see, I'm mixing everyone up. I think you're all merging on the screen. Colleen, go for it.
So I'll take that just from personal experience. I think it's so important to normalize that these things happen. So if you think about where we're at in confinement, in the situation, in the world, it's not normal for us all to be in each other's space and face all the time like we are. And so it is normal for emotions to run high, for us to feel edgy at times, for tension to be around. And so I think it's absolutely important for us to be able to acknowledge that within ourselves and then unpack that together as a family system. I'm not proud to say I've had moments where I've had outbursts and I've had to go back and repair with my 6-year-old. This is over the last couple of years. In those moments, I've had to identify what triggered those short outbursts and how do I repair with my child and explain to him what happened. And it's never an excuse when you have a bit of a freak out moment, but what I've noticed, it's when I'm scared. So when my child has, for instance, been ill or had a temperature and he won't take his medicine or he's upset, it's at that moment where I'm afraid, and I go, for example, I'm just remembering a story where I said, "You must take this medicine," and he got a fright. But I realized my tone wasn't as calm as it should have been in that moment. And so when he took his medicine when he was ill, I then found a calming moment to actually go back and have the conversation and say, it's never okay for me to raise my voice, but I want you to know why it happened. So I'll share with him my intention behind the behavior and that I must pay more attention, realizing he's also a sensitive child. So he will say, I'll remind you, mommy, that I'm sensitive. And, it's interesting because it's never okay to raise your voice, but it does happen. And so it also happens when you having debates in the house and it's not anything to do with the child. So if my husband and I have an argument or a debate, my child picks it up and he will come and involve himself and he'll say, is everything okay? And at that moment, we realize, okay, our tone isn't what it should be. We're not showing up as our best selves. It brings awareness to the family system. And then we can involve him in the fact that it's okay. We're having a disagreement and we will be able to get over this together and, help him understand that these things happen, that it's normal, and we've got to find a way to get through some of the issues that arise in the household. So I'm hoping that answers the question and gives a bit of insight into how tensions rise, arguments do happen, and it's not only up to one side of relationships. It actually takes more sides to resolve and repair. And it also teaches our children that it's okay to have disagreements. The important thing is how to repair and to resolve them.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Colleen. And Kamal?
Yes. I would like to add to what Colleen has said now, and she also mentioned something about guilt previously. So it happened quite a lot of time with parents that they have, that they, take their role of parenting very, very seriously and thinking that, like even for a moment, if they've not been there for their child, it's something, how could they do it? But I have understood and I've come to learn that more than just
being there for them at all the times, it's important how you're being with them. So if you're being with them, but you are in a very agitated state, you're in a very weak state where you're just falling apart, that will do more harm to them than, add any value to them. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is that the children are never that weak that they can't handle a little bit of, living alone. They can handle it. But what they probably cannot handle is seeing their parents falling apart, because they depend quite a lot on them. So they want to look at them as contained, as strong, so that they can depend upon them. So although and they, it is life, so it's quite practical that you will be falling apart at some point of time. But then what do you do after that? Do you also let them see that, okay, you have picked yourself back up again? If you are not in a correct emotional state, or if you're not physically strong to be there for your children, you take your time. You tell them that I need a little time. And this is something which I learned when my son was like very, very young, when he was like, I think 2 or 3 years old, when he would have these, rage and tantrums and, temper tantrums, and then he'll be very, very agitated. And then I noticed that if in that moment I'm able to keep myself cool and calm, he takes much lesser time to get settled. But if I also am in a losing state, like if I'm tired or if I'm hungry, I've not eaten food and I've straight away went to him, or if I'm worried about other things, then this whole fiasco can go for the entire day. Then he is agitated, I'm agitated, and nobody is happy. So I think as parents, it's very important for us to have our own routine, our own ways to see that we are physically, emotionally, socially supported and taken care of.
Absolutely. Edyta.
Yes, so just to piggyback on it, it's one of my notes that I jotted for this. So that's another thing that I've noticed with myself. On days where I don't wash my hair, don't, maybe even forget to take a shower, don't put makeup on, I am sluggish. I'm like, blah, I don't want to feel like doing anything. And then it sort of moves on to my children, right? And it's just the whole day. It just sets I'm talking about myself. So, I'm sure that people have different routines. However, I am thinking that, if we have the routine for ourselves, if we start taking care of ourselves, starting with the shower in the morning, with coffee, have your own little routines. If you need some peace and quiet first thing in the morning, maybe even wake up, a couple minutes earlier before you need to get the kids up, and have some time for yourself, go on Facebook, read a little bit. I listen to audiobooks. That's what's helping me. Wear normal clothes. Don't just change from your night pajamas to your day pajamas. Okay, this is just something funny that's been happening for the last few weeks in my household as well. But like, I've noticed that if I, like today, I was anticipating, I'm like, okay, and it's going to be a great day, I know it. But a couple days ago, it wasn't the case. I was sort of like, yeah, I don't have to, I didn't really have any conferences with my students, so they didn't have to see my face. So I was just like, okay. And it wasn't the best day. So if we start taking care of ourselves, I think that it will, I know it will help our children as well. It's okay if you put your child on, let them watch a movie and then you take a bath, or you take this time to call your friend and chat, or just have some peace and quiet for yourself. That's just something, that self-care, nobody else will do it for you. You need to figure it out how you're going to do this. But I know by doing so, you're also showing your children that this is what we can do, that we are setting it up for ourselves. If we choose to have a blah day, that's what's going to happen. But if you wake up, and it's not always easy, trust me, I know it best. But if we choose to come up with a way to start each day with something positive, we are setting up, our whole day. Something on a less, and it's probably not maybe for this webinar, but I understand that there are many people who are at home with their spouses many times, and it's creating a lot of tension. Not every marriage is wonderful. And, people are struggling when they are going to different directions. But now many families are stuck at home together. And that's, like I said, that's yet a different story, but I know that that's the case. So I don't know if we want to address it a little bit now or later. How do you do that? Like how do you reach out for help? I know that one thing is having a good group of people around you, friends, family that you can talk to, that they will provide the strength for you. Otherwise, it may really have a very negative effect on the kids. You, Colleen, you were talking about, having arguments or discussions with your husband. But, now when parents are worried about money, maybe somebody lost their job, that's even worse. That's something that, and you are stuck at home. You can't really seek help outside. My suggestion is to start calling, different agencies, church, any religious organizations, anyone that can listen. Don't feel that you're alone. Look for help. Okay. Search out social worker, school social worker. Even if you do the teledoc, there are psychologists, psychiatrists that will help out, because don't think that you're alone. Look for ways to help you outside of home. Okay, because you want to stay sane, you want to plow through it somehow. And sometimes it's, being alone can really bring you down. So if anybody else has something to say, I'm not a psychologist, so it's really hard for me, but I have a lot of friends, and some of them are talking about it, and it's tough.
That's a very, very important and relevant point, Edyta. And of course, there are all these very practical issues and challenges that we are facing currently in our respective lives. And I have noticed and I have observed, and I don't know if being a parent makes it easy somehow, that in any given moment of challenge, whether it is our financial stability or whether it is any other kind of skill or support that we require in our lives, the only thing I believe that the help and support is out there. It's always out there, and I find the world to be such a place where if you from your inner self are ready to reach out, then there are more than enough people to be able to come forward and support you. But what hinders us, because we are human also, sometimes we are very deeply ingrained in our respective egos, whether we are aware of them or not. And it gets really hard sometimes to just open up and say that I need help or I need this kind of support, because we are so strongly, we all want to feel sufficient and enabled in ourselves and to in a given moment. So I think there also, just to know that you're not just responsible for your own life, but you're responsible for the life of 2 or 3 or as many other individuals also. I think somewhere so there are 2 ways. You can either stress about it all the time and say that, oh my God, I have responsibility, and I have to do this, and how do I do that, and get stressed. Or you can say that, yes, they are there, and because they are there and because they are your responsibility, at some point of time they will help you fight with your own internal ego. Put it aside and say, in this very moment, what is more important, my ego or my sense of self and pride, or the fact that I need to take care of them? So it gets very easy to just brush aside your ego for a moment and say that, hey, you stay in the corner, I'll come back to you later. But let me do this, because this is something which is more important. This is to be addressed in this moment. And I think that is one advantage of being a parent that I've realized, so it becomes like a resource. So in that moment, your children are not just responsibility, they are also a resource from where you derive that sort of a strength that you're able to shut up your own internal blocks or your internal ego. And if somebody can just come up to that level, and it's beautiful, it's really wonderful, and it's liberating also, so liberating.
That's, do you mind if I hop in there, Leah, on the back of what
Of course not,
both
please
Edyta
do.
and Kamal have said? It's like, whoa, it hits me in the feels, because really being able to show up as your best self is not the easiest thing in the world. And it does take breathing, it creates, it takes pausing, it takes asking yourself these questions, what do I need right now in order to rise above that ego-based behavior that I'm displaying, in order to be fulfilling the needs that my family has. And it's so important in terms of all relationships. That relationship with self is vital, because it does, I truly believe, set the tone for relationships with money, with jobs, with other people you live with the people you work with. And I really like that Edyta said, please do reach out. All the stigma around psychological health, mental health, now is the time to really get real with yourselves around, when we were able to go to the gym, that was okay, to go to the gym to work our muscles. But what about our mental health? What about our emotional health? And why is it not okay to talk about it? And you don't have to necessarily, you could make these arrangements with your family members to say, I need me time, and then go and find groups in the world that we are now able to connect via technology. You can remain anonymous. You can find support systems in the world where you can give yourself what you need from a soul food perspective, from a mental health perspective, to help you feel supported emotionally, so that you can build up this fitness for yourself and for the people that you are looking after. And I love what Kamal said about the wisdom that you find. These children, I believe my son has been in my life to help me raise my level of self-awareness. He's my self-awareness meter. And I love how he reminds me when I'm doing something. He'll go, oh, Mom, you did this. And I'm like, oh, really? I did that. And it's really beautiful how you can draw on the wisdom that children actually bring into your lives, into your life. And they will tell you what you need to do for them. They will tell you what they need. And it's really, really important to listen and to watch for those signs when they're telling you what they need. So I just wanted to add to what Edyta said and what Kamal said, and I hope that helps people out there.
I think everything that you're all saying is so relevant and so insightful. And also with mental health, there's many benefits at the moment and positive things around COVID-19 that we can look into. And one for me, having worked in mental health with young people for many years, is it's going to start breaking down the stigma of mental health as well. People are starting to talk because everyone is struggling in some way right now with their mental health or emotion, or just dealing with this whole change. So I think that's a real opportunity. I think as well, it's worth me mentioning for those who can't see the chat box at the moment, we at Coacharia have crisis coaching available at our marketplace. So if you go to marketplace.coacharia.com, marketplace.coacharia.com, and you can reach out for pro bono coaching from a massive marketplace of some wonderful coaches. Also, we have a weekly support group, so just check out events on the website. I'm wondering what coaching tools and resources you could recommend to parents out there. Kamal, if I could start with you, that would be really good. Thank you.
Yeah. So for me, like coaching is a very, very deeply ingrained part of our lives now. And there are so many different techniques and tools that we use. One very significantly, which I realized in case of my son who's 8, that he was starting to showing, like, although he's perfectly fine and healthy, but because he was putting in so much emphasis on all this data and talking about coronavirus and then all these sort of things, after a few days I started to notice and observe that he complains of having ache here or there in his body, feeling very tired and fatigued, although they've been also able to maintain their normal routine of activities. They'll stay quite active around, running around the house, playing with his cousin and all of that. So I could correlate because he's thinking so much about the ailments and all of this, and I do believe in the energetic ways that we are all energetic beings also. So I saw that that's impacting his being in his body and physically, so all that fatigue and aches, etc. So I started to work a little more somatically with him. Like whenever he say, this part is aching, so I'll speak to him and I'll say, okay, let's just breathe, and we do some breathing exercise and relaxations, and so those kind of things we'll do somatically. We'll do some stretch exercise or some energy enhancing activities, and then while we are talking, while we are communicating, a lot of rephrasing, and then shifting his focus from one aspect to the other aspect. So these are some little fine nuances that we use in our coaching conversations also, which have automatically become a part of our everyday lives nowadays. And we also have a lot more opportunity to spend time with each other. To be really present for them is something which I'm getting to practice quite a lot these days. Yeah.
Thank you. Colleen, do you have something you'd like to share, a coaching tool that might be useful for parents out there?
Yeah, thanks, Leah. And thanks for that, Kamal, as well. I love to learn about more tools as well. So the one tool that is my go-to tool that I use in relationship systems coaching with teams, I've often taken these tools myself, and I like to use them at home. But the one that stands out for me in this particular time is what's called a designed team alliance, or a designed partnership alliance. And it comes from the Center for Right Relationship. Being an organization and relationship systems coach, I find it very helpful to build agreements, be conscious and intentional about the relationships that you build. And now that we are in confinement, there are so many more contexts to deal with. So I've had to take this tool, which in essence is really about how do we want to be together? What kind of atmosphere do we want to create? Because oftentimes when things like this are happening in the world, we feel so out of control, but there are things that we can control. There are things that we can bring into, we can actually create together. So how would we like to be? What kind of atmosphere would we like? What does it look like? How will we know we had that? Are some of the tools that we use in designing an alliance and looking at the behaviors So what kind of behaviors do we say are okay? What are not okay? But how I've adapted this particular tool, given COVID-19, is that we suddenly have all these different contexts to deal with. And we actually have to look at ourselves as well. So we've got personal, so just bringing it home to myself. How can I help my family system in order to be more helpful to my clients out there who are also working from home, living at home, schooling at home? And so it helps to really list what are the different contexts. Under personal, who are all the people living under one roof? What are all their needs? What are the household needs? What are the work needs? What are the school needs? And so all these different contexts we are managing under one roof. We can bring a structured plan into play. And really it goes down to understanding our own needs, understanding each other's needs. Can we meet them or not? And what do we agree on or not? And sometimes it helps to just list that and to find ways to give each other feedback and to be able to say, you know, this is a living, working agreement. What's working, what's not working? And I see both Edyta and Kamal want to come in and say something.
Thanks, Colleen. Whoever wants to go first, Edyta or Kamal, because you both had your hands up.
Okay, so I have more of a perspective of a teacher, right? About like some things that you can do with your kids that are not necessarily what you would not necessarily consider as learning, but truly are not only bringing you together, but also are learning things. For example, when you're cooking and baking, that is something, you know, lots of measurement, you know, counting, turning on the oven to certain degrees. And so there's so much that you can do. It's a great way to just talk to your child. So you're not thinking about it as learning, but it is learning. And again, it's bringing you together closer. Meal planning, you know, you are stuck at home. So involve your children. Like, what do they want to eat? Let's try different foods. You know, now it's time to explore different cuisines, for example. You know, you can go and look for different recipes. You can have theme days. That's what my daughter has been trying to do, you know, including the clothes and everything. So you can make it fun if you'd like to. And again, it is a great way to keep you together. It's a great way to keep everybody involved and entertained, you know. When you're thinking about budgeting too. I know some children are worried about the finances, even though we say they shouldn't be, but it's hard not to when parents are worried and they are stressing about not having a job, you know, that's something. So again, you can involve them again, you know, at a certain level. They don't have to know everything, and you know, but just opening up will definitely help. Anything, you know, anytime you use imaginative play, doing puzzles, working with blocks, painting, anything that kids can get their hands on. They can wash dishes, they can help with cleaning. There's so many things, just the regular activities that even though you would do them better and faster, guess what? You're not going anywhere. You have time. You have plenty of time. So take your time, truly. Building forts. That's one thing that my kids love to do, and they still do. Go through old pictures. When the kids, you know, my kids still love looking at the baby pictures. We could spend a day just going through, bringing up memories, talking about the different activities. That is just such a great activity that periodically comes up in our house. And it first started when we had a snow day in Chicago. You know, we usually have snow days several times a year, you know, each year. But that was our favorite activity, and the kids still go back to it. Read together, dance together, you know, be silly together. there are so many things that will help you. My kids tell me like, Mom, why are you so serious? Because, you know, teenagers have a specific sense of humor that I don't always appreciate. And and they know when I don't appreciate it. So then they get upset. They're like, why are you so serious? Why can't you just be a mom? Why do you have to be a teacher? So then I have to take a step back and I have to think about what I'm doing. I'm like, you know, you're absolutely right. You know, I'm sorry. And then I start laughing. My son will literally come up to me in the kitchen when I'm like busy doing something, and he either gives me a hug or starts dancing with me. I mean, for almost a 16-year-old, that's pretty cool. But he knows that that's one way to he knows me quite well, and that's one way to lower my stress level too, because kids can sense your emotional state even though you think they can't. So that's one way they're helping me. So I know it's not easy, trust me, but just let it go and try to have just normal fun days with your kids besides the work, which again you have to do, and besides the online learning that kids are required to do. There's still time, there's plenty of hours each day right now. So, and hopefully it's only a few more weeks, we can do this. Thank you.
Thank you. We can do this. You can all do this. And do you know, I can't believe I'm about to admit this, but something else about what you're talking about, integrating education into cooking and all those sorts of things. Do you know, I didn't learn how to fry an egg until I was in my 20s. And I used to be absolutely petrified when I was a teenager of taxes, because I'd heard about them, but I didn't have a clue what they were. And because I left home quite young, that was something that I just really wanted to know more about, but they'd never been talked about. And obviously, depending on the age, but these life skills are imperative for children, especially if you're like me. I would love, before I move on to Kamal, there's an article that I wrote that was shared in the LinkedIn group that we have, and it's got absolutely loads of resources, all online resources, museums, virtual zoos, loads, absolutely everything. So do check that out because it might help. Okay, Kamal.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Edyta. You know, I so agree with it. For children, and I do not mean really the small young children, but even those who maintain that child inside, you know, because they are very curious. Curiosity is a natural element of children. So be it elder or the younger ones. Everything is educational. Really, everything is educational. Especially, you know, sometimes because I'm still very fond of watching these cartoon movies and there's all the Disney stories and everything like The Lion King. You know, I must have seen this like 20 times with my children. And it does talk about what is termed in a book as the hero's journey, but explained so beautifully like a child's story. And, you know, so I think as a parent, you know, what you could do is there are all these sort of things that are involved just to convert this from mere entertainment to educational is just teach them how to associate their own internal thought process with what they are experiencing in that moment. So say if they've seen some cartoon, you know, afterwards you can just ask them, oh, so what did you like much about it? And then they'll say, okay, what part they like. Oh, what made you like this part so much? So you know, that sort of help them develop associations which help them understand and learn more about themselves also. And I think it's a great opportunity for parents to learn about their children, because you as a parent do not want that these 15, 16 years, which is a very important time, you just waste it and not understand, not know the inner, you know, mindscape of your child, how they've grown and how they've developed. Because at some point of time in life, they may need to, re-examine how they've grown up, how they've been. Such is life. And if in that moment, as a parent, you cannot remind them who they really are, then really you've wasted a lot of time. Because parenting is not just about seeing that they are able to, become successful in life, but also to develop resources, to generate resources within yourself and with your child, so that in the times when they need, they turn to you, and then you can remind them that, oh, at that moment you said this, and they will learn, they will understand who they've been. And and so basically all these coaching techniques or tools have come out from everyday life situation. It's just that we put a structure in and understanding with that, and that's how it works.
Colleen, you had your hand up. Thank you very much,
Oh,
Kamal.
thank you, Kamal, and Edyta as well, because you make me think of so many things around these relationships and how we can involve our children, and how I'm proud to say I do. We need to be explicit about what is in our minds, and communication doesn't always come easy to everyone. We individuals, and we're all different, and so we've got different preferences and different needs, and so you start forming a habit, and you want to start focusing on what are some of the good relational habits that you can start instilling. And with this online work, one of the good habits is to take breaks, and to really take those 5-minute breaks. And I do that with my online workshops as well. And my family know when that happens as well. So my 6-year-old will ask me when I get up from my computer, "Are you on a break now, Mom? Can we do that hug? Can you make me a quick," what he loves is eggy samis, eggy sandwiches. And those are the things that if we're explicit about it, you involve your children, and they will also support you in what you need to do, so that you can support them in what they need to do. And so when I say one of my needs is every now and again, I need some alone time. And I ask everyone in the family to ask for what you need. With all these different roles, one of them, I'm not a mind reader. And so we need to know what's going on inside your head. And the one day I made Liam an eggy sandwich because he asked for one. And then he said, "Okay, Mom, you can go now. Why don't you go and have your alone time and go and sit outside while I enjoy my sandwich?" So it's incredible how you think these little tools and little techniques aren't impacting your family systems or anyone else, and yet they are, and they come back. They actually do come back at you, which is quite interesting. When your family turn around and use your tools on you, it's quite interesting. My husband changed this designed alliance, and he said, "We need to talk about a pandemic partnership agreement. I think the time has come." I'm like, wow, I love that. That's awesome. And I don't even have to be the one to be coaching without permission. So they do work, but obviously tools can remain tools unless you actually start practicing with them. And I'm hoping to share the resource I'm pulling together in the LinkedIn group for people to make it their own. I'm not saying we've got to project manage and templatize and put all the structure in place with our families, but make it your own and start, use what you can, lose what doesn't work, and start having these conversations with yourselves and each other, and try little things that really make a big difference in your relationship systems.
Colleen, I have a question that's come through. Could you tell us more about the coffee chat that you mentioned earlier?
Okay, so
Thank you.
I've been figuring out a way to give back in a big way in the world. And with everyone finding themselves in different situations, having these different preferences and different needs, I wanted to create a space that is a free coffee connect for people to come and connect via technology. The one that I'm having on the 6th of May, I've got a counseling psychologist joining the table so that we can help support people given the various contexts they find themselves in, whether you're living alone, because that brings with it different concerns, fears, issues, whether you're living with people. Like, I love my family loves me, but when you're in one space together like this, you find you start standing on each other's toes. And I don't think it's normal that we are in each other's space 24/7. And so that's the other context. And then just dealing with the fact that we're in quarantine. You know, what does this look like? What does it feel like for people? And where do they go? So I'm really creating the space for people to truly be able to connect with other human beings without necessarily even having to meet them. People share as much as they want to share. They don't share what they don't want to share. And it's really an opportunity to have a space to learn about coping mechanisms and to really just connect with people with whatever they're going through in this time. So I've tried to do them every 2 weeks, and the 6th of May is really focused on a mental health and emotional health check-in.
This sounds great. It really does. Thank you for sharing. And we'll also share the details in our blog post tomorrow after this webinar, if that's okay.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Edyta, over to you. You've had your hand up.
Yes, just a quick point that I forgot to mention before, that, you know, all the fun that I was talking about, the learning is wonderful, but I highly and strongly suggest having a routine, having a schedule when we are dealing with kids, with younger kids. Just like, you know, we at school, we focus, we have a schedule every day, we go over time, you know, and the thing that we are doing, and kids rely on it. They need to know the predictability of each day is very important. So even having a calendar, you know, crossing off the days on the calendar, talking about what was yesterday, what will be tomorrow, talking about the weather, you know, talking about 8 o'clock being breakfast time and then 9 o'clock being the learning time. That is crucial in this situation. If you do not set it up, it will be much harder to follow through the next few weeks. And this is what I've seen happening in the homes of some of my students, that, you know, like everybody's just becoming sluggish and we just don't want to, it's really hard for us to get up and start doing certain things. And, you know, the child, if you let them stay in bed, they'll stay in bed all day long. It's up to you. You are the parent and you are in charge. Create the schedule together, involve the kids, but then stick to the schedule. Even though you don't want to, please do so. That is one way you will prepare your child for the new school year. There you go. I did get back to this point. That's very, very important, because we see for children who have not been to preschool, if they come to kindergarten and just, you know, from home without really having a routine, school routine, it's much harder for them to get used to the kindergarten, to the school routine. They do not want to sit longer on the chair. Why do they have to sit on the rug? You know, there are lots of different questions. So yes, that's one way. Stick to the routine, have a schedule. You know, do not think that you have to have something to do from like 8 to 3 during the school day. No. For children, the directions are, for kids who are primary age, like for preschoolers, it's 1 hour of learning a day. Like, they specify a lot of time. For kindergarten, it's between 90 to 120 minutes. So those are not, when you think about it in the scope of the whole day, it's really not that long. But it's important to have it, okay, so from 9 to 10, it's school time, and that's what we are going to focus. And then we are preparing lunch, and then we have fun, and then it's up to you, up to your family. But do please have a schedule for the sake of your children and for the sake of the next school year. Thank you.
Thank you. And that schedule, that routine is super, super important. And with teenagers as well. Absolutely. And agreeing that structure together, or at least discussing it together, and yeah, and mutually agreeing it, depending. We're coming to the end. There's only a few minutes left. So I am wondering if Kamal or Colleen, you have a final message or top tip or words of motivation that you would like to share with parents out there. And just jump in, whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first then. It's really just when holding it all together, remember to start with you, to create that space to figure out your own basic needs, because our needs do change, and to get in touch with yourself around what you need in order to then be able to articulate together with your family and figure out what they need is so important. And I'm so pleased that Edyta gave us parents permission, because when I'm doing this, I'm using these tools myself. I was putting 2 hours. The aim is to have 2 hours of collective focus time at a certain time a day. So 9 to 9:45 was the one that we do in the morning, and then another hour at some point in the day, so that we don't feel like we have to do the 8-hour day. Start small, start with what you can manage, and then change it up as you go, because we're dynamic, ever-changing beings. And if it's not working, talk about it. Figure out a way together. And the whole family system holds the wisdom. So ask what the family system needs.
Fantastic, thank you. Kamal?
That's so lovely, so wonderful. I'm happy to be a part of today's discussion, Leah and Edyta, Colleen. So all I would say is that, that any situation wherever in whatever situation we are in, like right now is one situation, offers us a choice to choose which zone we would like to be in, and then to work on it, that how we can keep ourselves in that zone, what are the things that we need to do. And I think it's just that simple, instead of feeling that you don't have a choice, you always have a choice, and you can make anything turn around. Just have to shift a little bit in the way you're approaching certain things. And I think whatever the time is, make the most of it, make the best of the memories, and then something good always comes out of every situation. Just keep focusing on the silver lining, and that helps us through.
Thank you. What beautiful last words for this webinar. Absolutely. This is a time that we have that's unique as well together. And hopefully it'll be a one-off. But during this time, we do need to make the most of being with our children safely at home. Just to thank everyone, Colleen, Edyta, Kamal, that was just a fantastic webinar, and I've learned a lot as well to take with me with my work with teenagers. So thank you. And for everybody watching, we have another webinar same time next week on difficult conversations with your kids during COVID-19, but just in general. And that'll be for all ages, I'm hoping. And we'll be joined by Tracy Brown, Lorraine Moose, and Kamal, who's here today. Thank you very, very much, and take care and stay safe, and bye for now.